live from Dime Square, New York City. Good evening, Kings. It's NFL betting market outlook for week 15. We are into the holidays, and for that reason, in fact, this may be the last regular season betting market outlook. As we start traveling, start spending some time with family, with our girlfriends who maybe still exist, who knows. So we're going to walk through a recap of our live betting performance, some of our favorite trades, some of our trades that didn't work so well, then dive into our drive quality scoreboard, quickly recap some of the biggest movers in the consensus market power rankings, and then we'll dive into week 15. When we recap week 14's live betting performance, what trade do you think worked out the best for you, for us, and maybe something that didn't work out?
The Chris Moore over receiving yards, 80.5. Right, we took that. He had about 59.5 receiving yards. It was clear that Davis Mills was looking his way. This is a team that was without Nico Collins, without Brandon Cooks, in a passing game script. Like, Davis Mills was going to look Chris Moore's way. Look, anything can happen for 20 yards, but like if you have on pretty decent certainty that like he's gonna get 4 or 5 targets, it was just a fundamental mispricing.
Arjun, a regular contributor in the chat, in fact, joined the stream later on in the afternoon. Arjun Menon, I mean, he pitched 4, 5, 6 prop bets over the course of the day and went like 5 of 6. Just was on fire. And that Chris Moore one too was one of my favorite bets of the day, not just because it cashed, but because it was such a screaming buy. And that was the type of systematic bet that I wish we could regularly flag, because it was at halftime when we legged in to that live bet. He had 4 or 5 catches, like 8 targets, 60 yards. And his live line was only like 18 yards in excess of that. And he was getting the looks. And that was what was most important. And the game script suggested continued passing. All the factors lined up of this is materially mispriced. Let's exploit it. And like big props to Arjun for really being able to bring it to our attention and for us to, as a community, really exploit that. What did you not like?
What did I not like? The Minnesota money line. I took that in the middle of the game, right after the Vikings went down by 1 score. I think it was like second or third quarter. And I was like, oh, I'll trade it off another side. And that was my pregame plan. But the game script wasn't going according to plan that I like initially, in my head, it was like, okay, these teams are not going to be able to stop each other. They're going to be putting up a lot of points. And that's why I should buy both sides. But that game script wasn't happening. And I just had in my head, oh, this is what I want to do. Don't forget your game plan. And I bet that. But I was like, the game was like 21-14 or whatever. The scoring didn't really pick up until very late in the fourth quarter when it was already out of hand. And it was a failure to adapt to what was actually happening. And I was just like, okay, usually I like to come in with my plan and I heat. There's no worse feeling than I had the plan and I didn't execute. That's the worst feeling. But it wasn't going according to plan. So don't just bet it because it was like in your head that this was the thing to do.
For me, I would say the one that I made that I regret was Giants plus 14. One, because pretty much everyone disagreed with it, and I did it anyway. It just wasn't a good bet. Also, just a lot of totals ended up not working out this year. That was definitely a drag on performance net. Yeah. Usually it hasn't been. There was just like a lot of weird game flows this week. I think that's my last live trade that I would say that I actually did really, and it kind of ties in to our week 14 drive quality, something that we've talked about in the past as well. I like looking at the drive quality scoreboard to really confirm or deny a live thesis on a game and why we either made a trade and maybe it didn't work out, or maybe it did work out. And one of the things I really liked was I really levered into Pittsburgh at beyond the field goal. So I got it at like 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. In fact, it was one of the biggest trades I made. I ended up putting like a little bit too much exposure on it. But drive quality says that the Steelers, in fact, played better. Steelers 19 earned points to the Ravens 18 earned points. And it confirms what I thought I was seeing in the game. Another live trade that we won some and lost some on, but again, drive quality, I think, confirms we had the right approach, was Jets. So we took some Jets levered bets, some Jets alt lines deep out of the money that ended up not cashing, but drive quality Bills, 16 earned points, Jets, 13 earned points. So a much closer game. But I actually rewatched that game. I really liked what I saw from the Jets. In fact, Flacco came in, turned the ball over, and that was critical to the outcome. So Mike White missed basically 2 full drives. And Mike White played really good. He had some drops. Again, he missed a few throws and wasn't able to bring them back in that final drive, really to put anything together. It was kind of 4 and out, game over. But Corey Davis also went out early. The weather was miserable. But I like what I saw from the Jets, and I like the drive quality scoreboard confirms that eye test.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't help to salt the wound of a +7.5 Jets ticket when I lost by 8.
Yeah. No, but when it was like 7-7, we were getting +600 money lines. This is mispriced. Again, they ended up losing, but that was mispriced. Moving on to our Week 15 consensus market power rankings, looking at the weekly power rankings from ESPN, PFF, 538, Football Outsiders, and InPredict. Our model equal weights all those power rankings to spit out a consensus market power ranking. Top 5, usual suspects. Bills still at number 1, Chiefs at number 2, Eagles up 1 spot to 3, Cowboys down 1 spot to 4, Bengals at the 5th spot. So not a lot of movement in the top 5. And then to round out the top 10, we got Niners, Ravens, Patriots, one of the big movers, up 4 spots to number 8, Dolphins to number 9, down 2 spots, and then the Packers at 10, up 3 spots. Just a relative move based on the teams surrounding them all dropping spots. So the teams around them, Dolphins, Bucs, Vikings, Browns, all losing 2-3 spots. And therefore, by that relative move, the Packers moving up. But drive quality still a meaningful market low on the Packers at 24th. The next closest is 538 at 16th.
And I will say our drive quality really does have some major disagreements in the top 10. Right, the Packers market has it at 10th. We have 24. Bucs market has it at 11th. We have it at 23. And I will just say we do have a new number 1 in our draft quality, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Ooh,
it was all of 2 weeks ago. All of 2 weeks ago, where everyone was ready to give up on the Eagles. They're a tier 2 team. It's the Cowboys and the Niners. I'm like, everyone has seemingly forgotten about what happened 2 weeks ago and is back on the Eagles train. The production didn't change. Weird things happen in the NFL. They only beat the Colts by 1. It's a good reminder of...
And which the drive quality had the Eagles winning that game by a full touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. Drive quality. From the drive quality's perspective, the Eagles' production has been as stable as can be from week 1 on. And the results of the games may have varied because that's what happens over the course of an NFL season. But their ability to move the ball has basically remained exactly the same. It's an important reminder. And Jalen Hurts is playing like a legitimate MVP candidate. He's the odds-on favorite right now. Whatever, regardless of who should be there. It was almost the assumption that you can't win with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. That was the thing that everyone would have said before the season. And very quietly and gradually, it's been like, oh yeah, of course Jalen Hurts could. And I think it's an important, same thing to a similar extent with Jared Goff. It's like, yes, it's a matter of levels, but at the same time, I don't think we can work under the assumption that there are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, and in the right circumstances, anyone can be successful. And I wouldn't just say, okay, good quarterback, bad quarterback, they can't win, they can. That's an important thing to keep in mind as we move on to the playoffs.
Great call out with the new number 1 with the Eagles and drive quality. Something we were talking about earlier today is to what extent the drive quality power rankings lead the broader consensus market power rankings. So to provide you some leading predictable signal, we back tested this on 20 years plus of data, and it had remarkably predictive results, which is one of the reasons why we've had so much confidence in it, even though this is the first season. And I think just anecdotally, it's been great. It's been ahead of the curve on a team like the Bengals, been well ahead of the curve on a team like the Seahawks, like the Lions. It's been well ahead of the curve on fading teams like Packers, Rams, Bucs, Colts, and being able to avoid those types of teams. It's been very accurate on the Cardinals, being like well ahead of ranking the Cardinals as basically a bottom 3 team for most of the entire season. And in fact, it's pretty much the only signal that we've gotten from drive quality that we have manually overridden over and over again
has had its misses too. We've had some heartbreak betting the Jags, though that's all but forgiven after last week.
But again, the Jags
Saints
is like
too.
the Saints is a fair one because I think it's been
I agree.
miscalculating
But-
what we've seen from the Saints. It's hard to say that the Jags is wrong.
Yeah, meaning it's not wrong in the sense of assessing the
It hasn't
truth,
made us money.
the capital T truth. Yes, I just mean what's made us money.
And so some of the biggest 1 week movers from the upside, Panthers up 4 spots to number 26th on a market consensus power rank perspective. Drive quality still a little bit hotter on the Panthers at 22. Lions up 4 spots. Top 10 team from a drive quality perspective, something we called out last week and why it was actually justified from a drive quality perspective, why they were favorites versus the Vikings. And Patriots up another 4 spots to a top 10 team now, number 8. We're still a little bit cold on the Patriots. We're at a market low at 13th. And then some of the biggest divers this week is down 7 spots to a market consensus power rank of 30th. Of course, now losing Kyler Murray. But drive quality was already well ahead of that. Already was ranking them again as a bottom 2-3 team for several weeks in a row, pretty much the whole season. Seahawks down 4 spots, Browns down 3 spots, and a flurry of teams down 2 or 1 spot. And that rounds it up. Okay, so let's move in to NFL Week 15. Start with the Thursday night game, 49ers at Seattle. 49ers minus 3.5 plus 100 on DraftKings right now with a total of 43. Brock Purdy banged up. The narrative I'm hearing around this game is Geno Smith's playing worse. It's still a tough place to play in Seattle. The Niners are outperforming. Purdy can't be as efficient or as good as he has been. Getting Seahawks over a field goal, this is slam dunk Seahawks territory. That's the narrative that I've heard recited. So this makes me not want to touch Seattle.
Right. I don't want to touch either of these teams. I disagree with the reasoning, though. I mean, Geno Smith is coming down to earth, but I don't think it's a difference in process at all. In the sense of he's been throwing these turnover-worthy play type passes all season long. This is actually a bunch of film people have been pointing this out. It's just they happen to be turning to interceptions now, but nothing's fundamentally changed. And you still could get the Geno games from earlier in the season. But Brock Purdy's been nothing but excellent. What evidence do we have other than the fact that he is a rookie, which could happen, of course, to say that he's going to come crashing down to earth? There's no way to know. I will say there's an important lie here, I think, which is that the Niners play far better from ahead. If you want to fade him, you probably want to fade him when the Niners are behind, if they do fall behind. And Seattle's been a great team when Geno needs to throw. He has not been the issue for leading comebacks. It's been the defense failing to stop teams, which I think are important angles to consider.
All right, Saturday game, Vikings, Colts +4, total 48. I think the Jeff Saturday magic is wearing off. So I think this is a pretty meaningful head coaching mismatch, talent mismatch. Again, things didn't go right for the Vikings versus a Red Hot Lions team, but Kirk Cousins still played well underneath the discrepancy in score. And I think I like the Vikings here.
I think so too. We know what the Vikings are. They're the same team. They're very stable. I think they happen to match up pretty well against the Colts in that the Colts have really limited production against wide receivers. But number one, Justin Jefferson's an alien. He'll probably win that matchup regardless, and they can win with their backs and especially throwing it to J. Hawkinson over them. And I don't think the Colts offense is really capable of taking advantage of the areas where Minnesota's weakest in the secondary. If you've got the noodle arm of Matt Ryan throwing to Alec Pierce, not exactly instilling fear and executing the deep ball.
Yeah. The Vikings, the poorest defense, and we know one of the biggest weaknesses for Matt Ryan, you're going to put pressure on him, then everything can unravel quite fast. And I don't know if the Vikings are necessarily going to be able to do that, which could keep the game closer.
And if they establish it, Jonathan Taylor's running for 7 yards to carry, and it's a slow game, of course that's working in favor of the Colts.
All right, Ravens, a +3 in Cleveland. Total is 37. I was tweeting a little bit this week about Deshaun Watson. I rewatched the Browns-Bengals, and to me, he definitely looked slow, lacked the processing speed, was throwing the ball late, but one less dropped ball, one less bad pass. and literally one less dropped ball in a critical situation, one less bad pass into the end zone that was too high and wasn't caught, changes the game script of that game. From a drive quality perspective, the Browns did outperform their realized score.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to take a few games and maybe the rest of the season for Deshaun Watson to really get back up to speed. But I think he did play better than what the perception is, losing to the Bengals by 2 touchdowns.
Completely agree with that one. I think what people are not talking about is over the last month, the Browns' rushing game has fallen off a cliff. Like earlier in the season, they were averaging a 0.1 EPA per rush, which was first in the NFL by far. It was efficient as like some of the best passing games. Right now, it's negative 0.19, which is worse than the Carolina Panthers offense this year. A lot worse. The run game has been pretty much a disaster over the past couple of months. I don't know if Watson's the biggest issue right now. And I think almost baked into the price for Cleveland is, okay, their offense is going to get going because they can always run the ball. And I'm not sure that's really true. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Watson puts together a vintage performance. And I think you're right that this game looks very different. If Donovan Peoples-Jones doesn't drop that touchdown, which would have hit a nice 40-1 same game parlay, and they were failing on 4th downs, I think the Browns could surprise, put together a good offense. But it all hinges on Deshaun Watson because his rushing game is not really going right now.
Dolphins +7 in Buffalo. 43.5 is the total. The weather's supposed to be pretty miserable, which is one of the reasons why I suspect the total is this low, given these two offenses.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I want to target that total of 43.5. I think we go over. I know the Bills' offense has definitely been clunky the last couple weeks, certainly not nearly as explosive as we've become accustomed to. And then there's also, I've been reading some things on Twitter. Oh, the Dolphins have been found out. The game script is out on them. I don't know if that's necessarily true either.
I trust McDaniel to make adjustments. It was unclear, okay, was this a Niners thing? And then once Staley did the kind of exact same thing, giving depth to linebackers, okay, it's out. People are going to try that. McDaniel knows he has to adjust now. It's not just a one-off with the Niners. And if you want to look at all the Dolphins played on scripted plays this year, they've been great. I trust McDaniel to figure it out, come out with a new game plan. He knows what's coming. It's no secret, right? The Niners and Chargers is the same thing. But the other part is that I've been really selling the Bills defense recently. The team has not been playing well over the past bunch of weeks, and this is a double-sided thing I want to buy, which is we're not going to get the Dolphins lower than where they're at right now. We know they have the ingredients to be an extremely successful offense. They've shown that for weeks on end. They have that high-end ceiling, and the Bills' defense is being priced as an elite one when they're just not. And they're not really able to get quick pressure, which is really the only area that Tua has been unsuccessful this year. Again, weather's certainly a concern, but assuming it's not 30-mile-per-hour winds and 4 inches of snow.
Yeah, the wind will be critical. The wind will be critical. Yeah.
The wind is critical, but I see this as a spot for the Dolphins to bounce back. Against an overrated Bills defense, and trust McDaniel. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I definitely like Dolphins +7. And as long as the wind is not a meaningful element, then I'm over on the 43.5. Eagles -9 on the road versus Chicago. Terrible defense, one of the worst defenses in the league the last 5 weeks, especially since they started making some of those trade deadline moves. Total 48.5. This also seems like it could be potentially low for two of the most explosive offenses that we've seen from a drive quality perspective.
Yeah, I think the question really hinges on Fields' health and whether or not he's going to be rushing. If he's rushing, this can be an explosive Bears offense. But again, as I always like to say, points exist in two spheres, right? It is both a reflection of a point spread value, like power rankings and a fundamental. This team is 4 spread points better than the next, but it also exists as real points in real games. And as we saw last week, it's a perfect example. The Eagles will be extremely aggressive. They're willing to put up a lot of points. And when a team is scoring 35, 40 points, the -8 spread is not so meaningful. The Eagles are clearly the superior team. The total might be attractive if the Bears can put up points in their own, but I like the Eagles here for sure.
I'm looking at the total over. Seems like potentially the most attractive, and I would do alt total, especially if you get a relatively quiet start. Chiefs 2 touchdown favorite in Houston versus the Texans, total 49. Maybe last week, intrastate rivalry, Texans and Cowboys. Maybe that was the last hurrah, but I've said this numerous times this year. I do not like Chiefs double digits. I don't like Chiefs really 2 scores type spreads.
Yeah.
Didn't work out last week either, even though they went up 4 touchdowns. You ended up not getting the cover. Drive quality says that they didn't get the cover either, so it wasn't necessarily unjustified. Russell Wilson goes out. Who knows? Maybe that game gets even more sideways if he potentially stays in. Again, the Chiefs they're not interested in blowing teams out, or I don't know what it is, but they just don't. They do it maybe once a year, regardless of the competition. And for that reason, I would not want to mess with Chiefs minus 14.
And Davis Mills loves to throw it downfield, which you connect on a couple of those, and that's enough offense. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see any reason to buy the Chiefs at 14 here. And I'm not buying the Texans either.
One of the biggest spreads of the season, Texans at home. I think it has to be, if you are a degen and want some exposure on this, got to be like Texans or bust in my view. Cowboys minus 4 on the road at Jacksonville, total 48. I'm going back, I don't know, for the 13th time this season. Every week it looks attractive. I've said numerous times, I do not like the Cowboys. I do not trust the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to go very far. And the Jags are super volatile, super clumsy, make tons of mistakes. But we said this in the past too. We said in the preseason preview, you don't want to play the Jags in the final 4 weeks of the season, especially. And we definitely saw that start to come to fruition last week. Definitely one of the better games that they played all season. And now they're plus 4 on the road, still alive in the division, tons to play for.
I'm torn here because I like both sides. I think we haven't really seen the Cowboys offense unleashed in a pass-heavy game script, meaning they've really just put on the easy buttons and led their run game. And I think this offense will be extremely successful when they're throwing the ball. And the Jaguars defense is really attackable right now. Like, they are really weak. They've been the second worst pass defense by a large margin over the past 2 months of the season. And the Cowboys are really built to exploit that, even if it hasn't actually kind of manifest that way over the past couple of months, which leads me to say exactly how I will be attacking this game, which is a tails outcome. I will combine some Dak Prescott passing props with, I could try and middle this with the Jaguars bet also, but I will be betting Prescott passing overs in some combination of Cowboys spread. In the same vein, like, I think you can bet on Lawrence. Lawrence is playing at an elite level right now. He's been unbelievable for 5-6 games now.
All right, Lions plus 1 in New York versus the Jets. 44.5 low total. I don't know if weather could potentially be a factor here. Jets defense played awesome versus the Bills. Again, I really liked what I saw from the Jets. Rewatching that, drive quality, liked what they saw from the Jets. Mike White played really well. If the injury is not going to affect Mike White's play, then I really like the Jets here. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the Lions are a different beast in domes, especially at home. And when they go outside on the road, it's just,
I think you're just butthurt from that Patriots game.
But
that
in any case, I think the Jets are still being underrated. Yeah. It should be 3. It should be 3 in my view.
I'm torn here. Lions' rise has, I think, in part come that the offense has been good, for sure, and it's been great all year. Their defense has played better as of late, and I want to sell that angle, right? Like, are they the 32nd best defense? No. Are they 20th best defense? Also no. I think it's somewhere in between. And I kind of want to sell the short-term rise in the Lions' defensive stock. With that said, their offense has been amazing, and it's a real clash. I'm not sure that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get Sauce Gardner treatment. I don't know if Sauce Gardner is going to go in the slot to play with him. And, like, you added Jamison Williams, who, by the way, was the fastest track player last week and caught a bomb of a touchdown. It's going to be a dynamic offense. I have no take either side of this game. Can the Jets defense slow down the Lions? I'm not sure. I usually like to bet on the offense over the defense.
Yeah.
It's a good live one to play, though, if you see the Lions slowed down by the Jets. And I think the Jets will have the same success on offense. It's another great matchup for Mike White.
And that's why I really like the over 44.5 here as well, assuming that there's not going to be a huge weather element. Steelers plus 3 in Carolina, 37.5 I'm really rooting for the Panthers. I got that plus 4,000 division ticket just from 3 weeks ago. You bring it up now. Do you know what the Panthers are to win their division now? Without looking?
Plus 300. I just know because I check these daily. Something at work.
That is a rapidly bullish move. Nonetheless, so I'll be rooting for the Panthers for sure, but I am not going to be betting them minus a field goal.
No.
The defense has been playing awesome, but one of the components of my thesis for betting the Panthers was that Darnold could come in, potentially stabilize offense a little bit. He can play well in instance, and he's been playing relatively error-prone football. But I rewatched the Panthers Seahawks, and I saw a lot of things from Darnold that I just did not like. The dude is like a perfect example of how smart someone like Tom Brady is, and just how Darnold is just not very smart. He got sacked numerous times, and almost every time he got sacked, he's all tangled and like putting his body in these very bizarre positions to the extent of where I thought almost every time he got sacked, he was going to suffer some serious injury, knee injury, back injury, hip injury, because he kept putting himself in bad positions. Whereas someone like Tom Brady knows how to take a hit, knows when to give up, knows when just to collapse, and that's how he elongates his career, and also doesn't put himself in necessarily very vulnerable positions to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And so now versus a defense like the Steelers, I'm worried about the Panthers. The main benefit from Darnold so far, you could say, is he hasn't been turnover prone, but he was very like prone to potentially turning the ball over, even in last week's game for such a bad defense like the Seahawks.
Yeah, TJ Watt game scares me against the Panthers. So the offensive line has held up. I just don't see any angles to play like either side here.
Falcons plus 4.5 division matchup with the Saints in New Orleans, 43.5 total. Desmond Ridder going to be the starter for Atlanta. Introduces a component of uncertainty. He played pretty decent in the preseason, and the Saints are just can't put it all together. Yeah, I don't feel very strongly in this one.
Too much uncertainty.
Patriots -1 on the road in Las Vegas, 44.5 the total.
I'm not going to bet anything before the game. There is something I want to monitor live, which is the Raiders have been playing terrific when playing ahead with a lead, and conversely, the Patriots have been among the worst at coming back. Yet makes sense with a offensive coordinator who lacks in creativity. They're like a bottom 3 team in any efficiency metric when they're down. So I'd look to, if the Raiders get out to a lead, I'd be perfectly fine betting on the Raiders and maybe moving up some alt lines.
Big interesting matchup here, obviously, with kind of mentor versus mentee angle. I probably like the Raiders here.
Yeah.
Cardinals +3 on the road in Denver, 36 the total. This is the lowest one on the board.
2 bad offenses. Not back to the Broncos. I don't care who you're putting.
Do you know, is Russell Wilson supposed to be back? Have you seen anything like that?
Oh, that's a good point. The NFL's it's almost 2 weeks for concussions, right?
Yeah. And that was a bad looking one too, like a visceral one where everyone has an image in their head.
And also, this is all about optics. I feel like zoomed in on him, clearly out of it.
Yeah. And they got nothing to play for, of course.
Yeah. Both teams are done. No thanks. Not spending my money on this game.
Bengals -3.5 on the road in Tampa, 44 the total. Again, from my anecdotal experience, hearing what others have to say about this game, it's the Bengals are beat up. The Tom Brady-led Bucs are still a top 10 team who've just played bad football, but still have that sky-high ceiling. They just got blown out. Tom Brady's going to be pissed. This is going to be a bounce-back game. And I'm fully on board fading that narrative.
I got a little worried there for a second. This is probably my highest conviction play of the week, the Bengals, and I'll be definitely adding it with Bordeaux passing props to go along with it. You look at the predict ranking from our chart earlier, which again sources in exactly what's being priced in this week and to some extent next week. They still have the Bucs at 10th. Our draft quality has them at like 24th, 23rd. You look at EPA on offense, the Bengals are 3rd. The Bucs are 21st. These teams are not in the same stratosphere. You think about, again, the same point I made earlier about points existing in multiple spheres. We know the Bengals are going to be able to score. How are the Bucs keeping up pace? These teams are not the same caliber offenses. At the end of the day, the market is pricing in some sort of turn inefficiency for the Bengals passing offense, and I want to fade any defensive downgrade for elite offenses. I think defensive matchups can matter in the middle, but Burrow's going to win against anyone. Also, the Tampa defense is a shell of itself.
Yeah.
Shaq Barrett's out. Jamel Dean, who's PFF's 10th ranked corner, he's going to be out for this game. Vita Vea looks like he's going to be out. If Sean Murphy, Bunting, and Antoine Winfield will be back, which is not a given at all, they're certainly banged up. This defense has zero pass rush. They don't have talent in the secondary. We've talked ad nauseum all season about the offensive flaws. The Bengals are peaking. Joe Burrow is not taking sacks anymore. The offensive line's playing way better. We know the talent they have at receiver. I love the Bengals in this spot.
Yeah, these are two teams moving in two different directions.
Yeah, they're still not being priced that way.
No,
that's the key point. We have the evidence of the Bucs are still being priced as a top 10 team. They're a bottom 10 team for sure. They're terrible.
And that's what is presenting the opportunity here. Is there's some pretty strong just storylines around this game that's causing this pricing. And when we're talking about ceiling outcomes for the Bucs, yeah, it's week 15 and it's never materialized all season, but people continue to cite it. I feel like this should be Bengals -7.5. And so I would play this all the way up to, I'm looking at Bengals -14.
Wow.
-13.5 plus 298. The Titans +3 in LA versus Chargers, 47.5. The total Chargers -3 plus 100 on DraftKings. The Chargers have been choppy, but maybe they're starting to put it together. Again, they're getting healthier.
Yeah. I still have questions about the defense. I just don't think this is the spot for the Titans are not the team to capitalize. They insist on just running the ball, and they don't have the receiver talent to take advantage of the Chargers secondary. And I think we can't overstate the difference between Justin Herbert throwing to Michael Bandy, and these were nobodies. And now they have 5 legitimate weapons. Mike Williams, legitimate weapon. Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett. Josh Palmer's a very good 3. Austin Eckler's one of the best out of the backfield. You can't underestimate that. Granted, the offensive line has still been an issue, and Herbert's had to navigate kind of those pockets. But yeah, I've been attacking the Titans pass defense all year. I don't see any reason to stop right now.
Yep. I like that angle. Giants in Washington, rematch of a game just a few weeks ago. Giants +4.5, over under 40.5. I was really surprised by this line. In fact, this might be one of the most surprising lines because I at least understand. I think the Bengals Bucs is mispriced, but I understand why it is what it is. I'm surprised the Giants is +4.5 here in a game that went to OT just a few weeks ago, and our drive quality had implied the Giants did play, in fact, a little bit better than the Commanders. I know the Giants did not look good last week, but they're getting blown out by ostensibly perhaps the best team in NFL. Certainly understandable. I like Giants +4.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I find these teams, even I was pretty shocked actually when we were looking at power rankings. The Giants were 28, 29, something like that, and the Commanders are 15th. And that's crazy. I think these two teams are awfully similar. It's just if we flip their seasons, I think we flip the power rankings.
Yeah, drive quality has Washington 18th, Giants 21st, versus market power rankings of 15th for Washington, 29th for the Giants. So the market's saying these are two meaningfully different teams, and that's being reflected in the pricing, whereas drive quality would say that these are pretty two equally matched teams.
4.5 points is too much.
The last game, Monday Night Football, Rams at Green Bay. Rams +7, 39.5. We're lower than the market on both these teams. I think I like the Rams +7.
Yeah, again, it's not a place I'm betting just because it's two bad teams and it's just not my style of play, but I agree that 7's too much. And the Packers have shown no ability all year to separate from teams. But again, we saw they're power ranked 10th. Our numbers have them at 24th. I lean much closer to the 24 than the 10. One thing I'm monitoring for props purposes is Tutu Atwell has been the go-to target in situations where the team is trailing. Since he got some run, I'd be betting some receiving yards and receiving props of his if the game script goes according to what Vegas thinks, and if the Rams are trailing.
All right, good stuff. That wraps up the NFL Week 15 NFL betting market outlook. Again, we'll be back in a couple weeks to wrap up the season going into the playoffs as we take a little bit of a mini break going into the end of the year and into the holidays. Hope everyone enjoys any vacations that they may have, and we'll see you in Game Trade live betting this Sunday, and then back on the betting market outlook as we go into the playoffs. That's closing bell.